Right, hello Doctor Who fans, and welcome to another review. Today's review, we're going to have a chance to take a look at a talk show, a talk and discussion show for Doctor Who on CBBC during the revival years of Doctor Who, when Doctor Who was coming back to the BBC screens in the late noughties, mid to late noughties. Let's get straight into it. So the show, of course, is totally Doctor Who. This series featuring Barney Harwood, who was a very popular face on CBBC at the time. He was very popular for what he was, and he decided to take on the role he basically took on the role being a presenter for this series, and I personally think he did a pretty good job holding the totally Doctor Who, and he was able to hold the helm totally Doctor Who from the very beginning, pretty much. Even though the female presenters changed hands in both series, where the female presenter would switch from one to the next. But essentially, this series first aired on Thursday, the 13th of April, and lasted until Friday, the 29th of June. And obviously, they only accompanied two series in the revival year, Series 2 and Series 3. Concept of Totally Doctor Who was essentially, the whole concept of the show was essentially to have behind-the-scenes stuff, chat with the stars, kind of hype up that week's episode of Doctor Who. That was the whole gist of Totally Doctor Who, was to be somewhat of a children's guide to everything Doctor Who. Pretty much is what this show was aiming to be. And obviously this show did air on BBC One as part of the CBBC bracket, because obviously CBBC was still being shown on BBC One at the time. So they had a section on BBC One CBBC showing roughly at 5 p.m. on a Thursday. They would show this, and then they repeated those episodes at 6 p.m. on Fridays, and then on Saturdays on the CBBC channel. Totally Doctor Who have got, like I said, another cool, obviously in terms of some of the guests, Totally Doctor Who was able to get their hands on. They caught up with David Tennant. They caught up with Camilla Courage, who played Jackie Tyler, Andrew Hayes-Smith, who played Jake in the who played Jake in Series 2, Elizabeth Sladen, aka Sarah Jane, when she was around, obviously, and this was just before her spin-off series was about to debut on New Year's Day 2007. So this was months before she would end up having a spin-off announced for Doctor Who fans. And then they also caught up with Rima Ajmer, who would end up being the companion for Doctor Who in 2007. They also caught up Nick Briggs, who would be the voice of the Daleks since the revival series began, and obviously he still is the voice of the Daleks, even though he hasn't been used lately because the Daleks haven't returned and they're having a bit of a break right now. Then, of course, they also caught up with many other guests, many other Doctor Who production team members and cast and guest stars from the episode, who came in to talk about what it was like to be a part of Doctor Who and be a part of the conversation, pretty much, of each of the episodes, and kind of just hype up the world of Doctor Who, which was really, really lovely. And that's what the show was aimed to do, was to give some of these guest stars an opportunity to sort of talk about their love for being a part of Doctor Who. Now, some of the cool concepts for the world of Doctor Who, well, in the world of Totally Doctor Who, they had a cool concept. Well, they had the whole behind the scenes segment where they would have an opportunity to, they had this whole opportunity to somewhat take a look at behind the scenes of recent episodes of Doctor Who, where they got to see some stuff behind the scenes of the Impossible Planet, as well as the making of the TARDIS, the TARDIS zones, which is the mini-sodes of Doctor Who that they were doing at the time. And then they had these like competition segments, like Companion Academy, where they would offer a competition between the ages of 7 and 12, where they would essentially do a whole competition where you were being judged by the editor of Doctor Who magazine at the time, Clay Heck, where they were given the task to essentially have a chance to draw some ideas for companions to wear, and if they win, they would essentially win a day behind the scenes during the filming. And then they had Filing Cabinet, which was essentially their version of the TARDIS, where they would have Gallifrey text on the front, designed to look like the 10th Doctor's TARDIS. And obviously they had they had this whole bigger in the inside thing, even though it's just a. And also, piece of work is featured on the show, and its author would receive the Totally Doctor Who brand. And then they had the whole handprints in series 2, where they had a whole viewers competition where should you answer the question correctly regarding the upcoming episode of Doctor Who at the time, you would essentially have won a handprint of all the casting that came in every week and made a handprint, and you would essentially win that week's win all of the handprints made. That was pretty cool that they did that. And then they did a whole animation for Doctor Who during this show, which is called Infinite Quests, where they would have Freema Agyeman and David Tennant obviously voicing their roles of the Doctor and Martha. They also had Anthony Head voice a enemy, the Scout of the Galaxy, who would be the enemy of the story, and Toby Longworth would also provide voices for the character as well. The cartoon was made by Firestep, who made the animation, even though there were better animations to come in the form of Dreamland, which you would see in 2009. You can watch that on BBC iPlayer now if you have. But yes, so of course, this was essentially like a mini adventure set in a 12-part animation story that they did for Totally Doctor Who in 2007, which was a way to David Tennant and Freema Agyeman in an adventure for the kids, in an animation adventure for the Doctor and Mark. And then they also had a section in the show where you have two teams of 3 battling out for a money can't buy Doctor Who experience. Team 1, being referred to as Team Time Lord, consists of Alias, Sarah, and Cody. Team TARDIS, you have Chris, Molly, and Daniel, even though one of the people from Team TARDIS previously appeared in the interactive Doctor Who mini episode Attack of the Grass just a few months before Totally Doctor Who, and a whole year or so before Totally Doctor Who was born. She would end up appearing in Totally Doctor Who 1 year later after its debut, and appearing in that during Christmas of 2005. She never revealed that to her teammates. And then, of course, the prize for people for the team who won would win a weekend trip to Blackpool to meet David Tennant whilst he was there to switch on the Blackpool Illumination, and then both teams would basically a framed art with their team, with the Doctor and Martha, in the same art style as the show's opening title. And then they also had another challenge that was introduced in Series 2, Who Goes There?, which is a backlit item of a monster was shown, and viewers were encouraged to identify the monster, and if they did, they would win mugs and sweatshirts by emailing and writing to the show with the correct answer. And then we had the Hoorah, which was also another little fun thing they did in Series 1, where they had a trivia between 2 children or a child or an act, with a prize of being, for one of the guests, usually a signed script promotional photo, and both contestants would receive a Who goodie bag for taking. And then obviously they changed the format in which the loser would have to give the win of a cherished. So yeah, that's essentially how that went down for those who were curious about that one. But seriously though, Totally Doctor Who, I feel like they did pretty well with what they did. I mean, unfortunately, they never had a Totally Doctor Who Christmas special for the 2006 or the 2007 special. And of course, they didn't do any, the program didn't return for the third, well, it didn't return for the third series to accompany the 4th series of Doctor Who. So Totally Doctor Who after 2007 would be completely wiped, and it'd be completely gone, having new episodes on BBC One is really unfortunate, because Totally Doctor Who it did very well for what it was, and it's just a shame we're never going to see a Doctor Who kids show like this ever again, because I mean, the only way you would get any Doctor Who news now is by Blue Peter, because obviously Blue Peter is a lot more reliable when it comes to Doctor Who, because they've been loyal to Doctor Who for like 60 plus years, and they've always followed the show ever since. And usually Blue Peter would talk about Doctor Who whenever they have an actor in or they have a competition to announce regarding. But these days, I mean, to be fair, most of the kids back then have all grown up at this point. So I think a lot of them are more focused on main show or Doctor Unleash at this point. So yeah, for most of them, they're more focused on just the main show and the Doctor Unleash. They're not really bothered about the kids stuff anymore. Young people would love to see stuff. Well, luckily you can watch Totally Doctor Who on BBC iPlayer, but I'm sure a lot of people who remember this, well, of course, they're going to want to see the show come in some form, so at least the show can be able to thrive in the 2020s years, even though it would probably struggle because, I mean, Doctor Who is in a, well, mainly because obviously a lot of things have changed in Doctor Who since this program came out. So obviously it would have to adapt to the new format of Doctor Who we're now in these days. So yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to hear from for those who have watched Totally Doctor Who, or if you remember watching Totally Doctor Who, do you feel like Totally Doctor Who should return in the future? Do you believe that Totally Doctor Who would struggle in this era of television? I'll be curious to hear in the conversation below if people would love to see Totally Doctor Who make a return down the road, but I feel like it's probably not going to happen because, I mean, it's very unlikely at this point for it to come back anyway because of how much it costs to make shows these days. I feel like Totally Doctor Who would struggle because of the fact that they would have a lower budget, and also they wouldn't be able to do much with that lower budget, will they? They would struggle. I think we're kind of fine without it, to be fair, even though it is kind of sad we don't have it today, but at least we could just look back at the memories of it, BBC iPlayer, because I mean we've got all sorts of Doctor Who stuff now. I mean, with the main show Doctor Who Unleashed, and we've all sorts of different content on BBC iPlayer that will keep us focused in the meantime whilst we're waiting for new content for Doctor Who to release. But yeah, I just thought it would be a really cool idea to sort of look back at Totally Doctor Who and look back at the show and look at the concept of this talk show and reflect on the the fact that I watched some of these episodes and really was fascinated the concept of Totally Doctor Who and seeing that animation Infinite Quest for the first time and being blown away with the fact that they gave us a special adventure of Doctor Who for us to, it was really, really fascinating. So yeah, I would love to hear in the conversation below what you guys make of Totally Doctor Who. Were you a fan of it? Would you want to see it come back, or do you feel like we're kind of okay without it? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be looking forward to bringing you some more Doctor Who reviews. I'm going to try and revisit some of the Doctor Who proms in the build up to this year's two proms getting a TV broadcast. We've got this year's Christmas special to look forward to in 2 months' time. We're going to have Children in Need coming up, so hopefully Doctor Who will be involved for Children in Need this year. And then, yeah, really, that's pretty much it in terms of content for now. And then obviously we're going to have some news reports of any other piece of news will be worth covering, whether we'll get any more animated black and white stories for 2025 or any other surprises Doctor Who merch wise we can look forward to 2025. Thanks for watching. I will catch you all in my news reports and specials soon. So see you then.